Welcome to Couch Convo with Coach Karla. I am your host, Karla Lewis, at Harvard University, completing medical school and residency at Johns Hopkins Hospital, and obtained a Master of Public Health from the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm so happy to have both of you. And we wanted to talk about this particular subject. Well, I wanted to talk about this subject because we have the second highest growing rate of HIV right here in Memphis, Tennessee. And Dr. Ahonka can correct me if I'm incorrect, but it's a big issue. And I'm really glad to see a grassroots effort being put forth to address it. The Cutting Out Stigma program is a program that trains barbers in different communities to talk about HIV awareness and health. And so it's just something that's really exciting to me. And we're going to get started with some questions. But first, I just want to know from Dr. Ahonka, what made you interested in starting this program?
Sure. First of all, I'm so happy to be here, and thanks for having Michelle and I on this
Yes.
evening. But yeah, the origin story of this, as you mentioned, I'm an infectious diseases physician, and I was seeing patients in the hospital at Vanderbilt in Nashville. And the first few times I was in the hospital, I saw young Black men who came into the hospital with advanced HIV because they didn't present on time. So they were really sick when they came to the hospital, and so sick that they ended up going on hospice. And it was, it really shook me because this is an infection that's preventable and it's treatable. And it was a manifestation of all of the challenges that we have magnified in our communities, in African American communities. And I really wanted to be able to do something about that. So it came from what I was seeing as a physician, but then also wearing a hat as a researcher and thinking, how can we work together with our communities to find a solution? So that's where it kind of started.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I know that you selected barbershops. What makes barbershops particularly impactful in terms of getting this particular message out?
Definitely. So, we did some research around this topic, and part of the reason that we were seeing people present so late to care, a number of reasons for that, but we worked with the health department the Tennessee Department of Health to understand who wasn't getting into care and try to see which populations we could try to address. And that led us to, Black men are not getting into care. They're a population we really have to focus on. But then we said, of course, where do Black men go? They're not coming to the health system. So we got together with a community of barbers and said, this is the problem we're seeing. How can we partner together to address it? But in those initial conversations, we kept hearing stories about HIV stigma. So we were hearing things like, I'd rather get shot than say I had AIDS. I don't even want to hear the word AIDS.
Wow.
If I got that diagnosis, I would kill myself. So this is the level of stigma we were hearing. And so we said, how can we work together to address the stigma? And so this was really an idea that came from partnering with researchers, on the academic side, with community organizations. Streetworks in Nashville is our initial community partner, and then partnering with barbers in Memphis and in Nashville.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so are Memphis and Nashville the only cities where this program has been initiated so far?
So far, we are the pilot test case. And I think we're doing, and Michelle and all the cohort of barbers are doing an amazing job. So we plan to go much farther than this, but this is where we've started. Yeah.
Okay. So let me switch to Michelle. Hey, how you doing? Now I see this young lady all the time because she does my hair. And you all have seen her work on the cover of the magazine that I was on, Bluff City Magazine, and because she does makeup as well. She didn't do my makeup tonight, but she does makeup as well. So I wanted to make sure that I threw that in there. But she's the owner of Risque Hair. And she is, as I mentioned before, a men's health ambassador, and she's been a licensed cosmetologist for 9 years. Okay. So, I wanted to know how did you find out about the Cutting Out Stigma program?
Well, I was working one day and two representatives, shout out to Steve and Nate, walked into the shop recruiting.
Okay.
And so there initially was a training seminar that we went to.
Okay.
And from there, I guess they decided who would be good to work with and who actually wanted to move further in the program. And I was moved because, like she said, our black men don't always get the attention that they need, not in the ways that are most necessary.
Okay.
And so I stuck with it. I hung in there.
Okay. So what's the program been like for you so far?
It's good to see a community where involving black men, because most of my counterparts are black men who are barbers. So it was good to see black men who are actually interested and invested in trying to help, others and push the message.
Okay. Are you the only woman in the program?
I'm not. I'm alongside Corey,
Okay.
who also works with me in Crazy About Here.
Okay, good. Is there anything else you can, well, no, actually, tell me what your role is as a men's health ambassador with Cutting Out Stigma.
Okay. So my role, my duties pretty much are posting using media to pass the message, to catch the attention of, people in the local area, to speak with my clients on a daily basis, spread, HIV statistics, give them resources on where they can get help, inform them of treatments and preventative measures, and pretty much make them comfortable with speaking on some uncomfortable subjects.
Okay, that sounds good. All right. So Dr. Ima, actually, what do you want me to call you, Dr. Ahunke or Dr. Ima? How do you want me to address
Either
you?
one is fine. So some of my patients have trouble saying my last name. So Dr. Ima, I've gotten used to hearing that quite a bit. So either one is okay.
Let me say Dr. Ima, okay? All right. So, could you tell us, now you told us about the inspiration for the program, and we talked about why barbershops are effective. Can you tell me a little bit about how this program addresses the cultural and social dynamics that contribute to the stigma of HIV?
Yeah, I do. I want to go back for a minute just to say why barbers are so special.
Okay.
And I don't think I emphasize that enough. One of the things that I say in academic settings where I'm giving this presentation is that as a physician, I see my patients maybe a few times a year. And you can attest, Michelle, I mean, your clients you may see once a week, twice a month, multiple times, right? So there's so many more touch points for this relationship, this trusted relationship. And, we all have that experience of going to our beautician or barber and you're relaxed and you share all kinds of stuff. So it's a trusted, it's a safe space. And we needed to figure out where there were safe spaces that black men felt comfortable talking and sharing and learning.
Right.
And so that's really why we went. And we know the origins even of barbering goes back to medicine and surgery. So there are lots of roots and ties. It's kind of full circle. Okay. So that's really why we wanted to partner with barbers. And then as you mentioned, doing this in Tennessee, like Tennessee is an important region because HIV is more prevalent in the southern United States. But then as you mentioned, in Memphis has really high rates of HIV, second highest of any other metropolitan area in the country. So it's a really important area for us to do this work.
Okay.
But the intervention itself, as Michelle was describing, we have a couple of components because when we first started talking with barbers, they said, okay, we're willing to do this, we're willing to have these conversations, but we have to, one, get trained so we know what we're talking about. Yeah. And we have to have something that sparks conversation because this is a stigmatizing topic. People aren't just going to talk about it naturally. Yeah. So what is going to encourage the conversation to come up? Okay. So we thought about having print media. So there's some posters up in the barbershops. We'll be putting up billboards pretty soon in Memphis and in Nashville. And then the social media content that Michelle mentioned. So we have a social media calendar where the barbers are posting each week. Okay. And that's also a way to spark conversation. So really trying to blanket some media around the community that's really encouraging conversation in a different way that the barbers can now facilitate. And then, of course, as Michelle mentioned, really referring people to resources.
Yeah.
So they learned about in the training both HIV prevention and testing resources, but also resources regarding mental health, resources regarding financial planning.
Good.
How do you even get health insurance if you don't have it? So, so the vendors that came to the resource fair that was at the end of the training, the barbers participated in, were hitting on a number of different areas that we thought were important, and we heard from the barbers would be important to include.
That's good,
Yeah.
because one of the things that I know is a lot of black men do not go to the doctor, period.
Yes.
Okay? And I mean that it can be young or older, because I've been surprised about the number of young black men who don't like presenting to the doctor.
Yes.
And I'm not sure why, but Dr. Ima, do you have any idea why they're so, and I'm not even sure if afraid is the answer, but why they're so afraid about going to the doctor?
You know, I have one of my colleagues at Vanderbilt, Dr. Consuelo Wilkins, said this really nicely, because we talk a lot about trust in the healthcare system, and we know that this is really a challenge for especially minority communities because of really important legacy of distrustful things that were done, you know, by the healthcare community. And the comment that I've heard her make a few times that I really love is that we as a healthcare system have to work to make our systems more trustworthy. We can't expect people to just now trust us. Like, what are we actually doing?
Right.
So I think that's one important reason is healthcare mistrust. We talked to some of the barbers about this actually when we were doing our initial work, and you know, it's trust. It's how are you treated when you get into the hospital? Is your voice heard? Are you respected? And when you have those layering negative experiences, then, you know, why are you going to come back?
Right.
You know, one of the quotes we heard from the barbers, and I think we all, any of us who have black men in our families, in our circles, that, you know, we don't go until we're damn near dead. That was kind of the quote.
Unfortunately.
And I think that's an all too common experience. But what we're hoping to do is really normalize some of these conversations around health in general as well.
Okay. You mentioned there's going to be a launching of a multimedia campaign as a part of the initiative, and that's going to include digital media, billboards, and community-based outreach. How will all of these different things help amplify the message and reduce the stigma surrounding HIV?
You know, I think you've heard, and I'm sure, you know, Michelle has experienced this too. I mean, it's very difficult to just launch into these conversations, right? You know, it's kind of a no-go area. I mean, when we were talking to some of the barbers in the beginning, it was like, oh yeah, we talk about everything. We talk about everything in the shop. We talk about sex, but oh no, we don't talk about that. We do not talk about HIV, and we do not talk about sexually transmitted infections. Like, what?
Yeah.
So
The icky parts.
icky parts, exactly. So we had to find a way to start to make the conversations a little easier to have. So we started with some of the social media posts is talking about health, just talking about health, talking about community, talking about caring for each other and ourselves, talking about your physical health, your mental health being all part of your health, and then your sexual health is part of that, and then kind of easing our way into this conversation. And I really respect the work that all of the health ambassadors have been doing, because they've had to find their comfort zones and how to enter into these conversations. I think they've done a great job of negotiating that comfort with themselves, with their clients. And I think we're starting to hear that over time, those conversations are getting a little bit easier.
Okay. So Michelle, how has it been for you to try to initiate those conversations with clients? What has it been like?
Honestly, it's been pretty smooth so far. Most of my clients know I'm pretty open. I share a lot about myself, and I give you all the floor to share a lot with me. And so it was pretty smooth. There was one hang up though. It's like I boasted too soon. There was a post where we share, you know, a photo of our client or of our work with the client, and, you know, leave a message with that, leading with, our work, and gave us some creative freedom. And I only have like a handful of male clients. And there was one in particular who I felt like I was closest with. I take care of him, I take care of his wife, I take care of their daughter. So I felt like, okay, we're pretty close. Maybe this would be the client to address with it.
Okay.
And he was like, do not post me with any message about HIV. Like, I understand what you're doing. It's appreciated. However, I'm not sure I want to be associated with it. And I'm like, well, it doesn't necessarily have to be your face. But other than that, speaking about it, talking about, the resources, the statistics, spreading the message, and what makes us so afraid to, approach the conversation has been smooth. Actually talking to people. People seem pretty open about it, and I think it's because of the warmth of my chair.
Okay. All right. That's good. That's good. Yeah, your chair is warm. Okay. Yes. So, yeah, I hear a lot of conversation at the beauty shop. So that's what I mean by that. I want to make sure people understand.
It's a family environment. We all share each other.
Okay. So, as a physician and health equity researcher, Dr. Ima, what is your vision for achieving greater health equity in Tennessee, especially in Black communities, through programs like this?
For me, this program is a perfect example of the power of community coming together to do something for community. I think that in public health, a lot of times we've taxed the community with we need you to do this, we need you to do that, but not either providing the infrastructure to develop a sustainable model. And so I am, one, committed to saying that, look, if this way isn't working, if having Black men come to the hospital is not working, while we work on making the hospitals more of a welcoming environment, a trustworthy environment, then we have to also build up other infrastructure. And that for me looks like this. It means like having a community of trained health ambassadors who are in the barbershop where people are going. So I think that there's so much power to this type of model if we can really do it in a way that's sustainable. And I'm really excited about those opportunities.
Yeah. How will you measure the success of the program, Cutting Out Stigma?
So well, I don't know if I did describe, so this is a pilot, it's a 6-month pilot where we're really just testing the concept, saying, is this something that's acceptable to barbers? Will they sign up and do it? If we post, how far can we kind of spread this message using these multimedia methods? So we're measuring what's the amplification, what's the reach of the posts. We've also surveyed some patrons in the barbershops to understand what's stigma like, and the barbers, what's stigma like before we start, what is it like at the end. So this is it's a demonstration and implementation project, but it's also a research study because we want to make sure that we're doing something in a way that's effective. So with that information, then we will go and do this in a much bigger way across multiple cities. That's the plan.
Okay. Yes. Well, that was going to be my next question. If it's successful, how will you scale it to other cities or communities beyond Nashville and Memphis?
Well, I think that we initially had, we shouted out Nate and Steve earlier, who are on our team, on our research team actually, and they are two barbers based in Nashville, distinguished gentlemen, and at Luxury Mobile Barbering, and then our partners at Streetworks in Nashville as well, led by Ms. Sharon Hurt. So I think this model shows us that we can have a train-the-trainer type model. Nate and Steve were part of the original team, and they helped us recruit and train barbers in Memphis and Nashville. And as we expand to other cities, we can utilize the barbers that have already been trained to help us expand to more cities. So that's the path that I hope we can take. And social media, of course, makes that all possible. And all the national networks of barbers and beauticians can really help us to spread in an organic way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have advice for other cities that are grappling with the same issue, like how they could tackle HIV awareness?
I think it's partnering with community and listening to what you're hearing is really important. A lot of times we say, okay, this model worked here, we'll copy and paste and do the exact same thing here. Even moving from Nashville to Memphis,
They have went well with us for, our communication with the clients, and we share some things that might have been hang-ups, and we as a group, just piggyback off of each other's information and experiences.
Okay. Michelle, how do you feel like the program has helped you grow as a person?
Tackling tough conversations for sure. I would be actually honestly afraid to bring this to them because my little one, she's not the typical why asker. Her why isn't just why. Her why is detailed.
Oh, okay.
And it's one of those, if you know, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But one day, eventually, I will definitely be pushing them to use those voices and ask those questions and get
I
involved.
think that's really what's motivated me. One, the fact that because we have such excellent treatment and prevention options, we truly could, and prevention options, we truly could eliminate HIV if we could get these resources to everyone who needs them. We can prevent it and we can treat it. So why is it still here?
Yes.
And why, when people get this disease that is treatable, that they can be what I think you think about me. It can be what I think about myself, because what society is saying I should think about myself because I have this disease. And yes, I think that we certainly have come a long way, right? We are at a place now where, like I said, you can prevent HIV. You can treat HIV with one pill once a day. You can live a totally normal life.
Yeah.
But even for me today, if I diagnose someone with HIV, all I say in the first meeting is that you're going to be okay. Because people still think they're going to die.
Because I attended Fisk University.
Yes.
Yes.
I
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Okay. All right. Okay. She checked out my LinkedIn profile.
I did.
So, yay, Fisk. All right. So, I've really enjoyed our conversation. I feel like I'm learning a lot, but as a mental health therapist, I'm very excited to see the involvement with the community.
Yeah.
Because I think that's going to be very impactful in terms of helping people feel more comfortable, and that's been a big part.
Banquet and Event Center.
Ladies, do you feel feminine during your feminine flow? You know, your monthly cycle, your period? Are you still suffering in silence? The suffering is over. It's time to choose Rain. Rain is an all-natural, premium sanitary napkin with 8 layers of cotton, high-grade polymers, graphene to help cut bacteria by 99.9%. Ladies, let's protect the most precious jewel in the world, you.
Rain Premium Sanitary Napkins do not make any medically backed claims or personal recommendations of any kind. For more information, contact Marilyn McGee. Rock and Roll Party Bites. The perfect way to celebrate any occasion in Memphis. Rock and Roll Party Bites. A lively tour guide, your favorite music, and great scenery.
Trained barbers in Memphis and in Nashville to be men's health ambassadors working in the barbershop to promote men's health, men's sexual health, and to reduce HIV stigma. And we're doing this really to combat a challenge that we're seeing, quite a bit in Tennessee, where there's a significant burden of HIV. So this is a great model, and we're really excited. We're piloting it over 6 months in Memphis and Nashville, and we're hoping to see positive impacts on men's health.
Yeah. And so for people who are just joining us, Michelle Seymour is actually I still say beautician. Do y'all say beautician? Okay. All right. Good. I'm not too far behind.
No.
So, I'm finding out that I have to continue to learn today's words. It's just this continual thing. So,
Yes.
yeah. All right. So, Michelle, you mentioned that your chair is warm. What other ways do you use to make people feel comfortable opening up and talking about? Do you start by getting them to talk about their health, or do you introduce them to the program? How do you do it?
Well, for one, the print media, like the posters and whatnot that we have displayed through the shop. That's one thing, because we have a lot of artwork, and putting those.
Wow, that's a big question. So I think, this program, as we've mentioned, is focused on HIV stigma, but I think there are a lot of potential further applications, because like Michelle said, sometimes they're referring people to resources. So someone who's never heard about HIV prevention or pre-exposure prophylaxis or PrEP, maybe now they know about it, they have a resource and they can be linked to PrEP. But I think what we really need to do is be pretty unapologetic about saying, what are the communities where this disease is really disproportionately impacting, and how can we make sure that those communities get treatment and prevention in a way that is acceptable to those communities. And we just have to do it. It's not really rocket science. It's having the creativity, it's having the political will, and having the financial support that you could get once every 2 months. Soon it will be every 6 months that you can get. But the whole point of this is that, let's say you are in a relationship with somebody who has HIV, you could take PrEP to prevent you from getting it. Or let's say you're in a community where there's a lot of HIV, and you are having sex, you don't always know people's HIV status, you could take PrEP to prevent it. So a lot of people don't realize that they may be eligible for PrEP. You don't have to take it forever. There may be a time in your life where this is a good thing to do. A lot of people don't realize they're eligible for it, and what saddens me the most is when I see someone come to HIV clinic, and obviously you don't need PrEP,
Right.
For sexually transmitted infection. But if you are in a community where there's a lot of sexually transmitted infections, and we've talked about HIV, but Memphis also have really high rates of other sexually transmitted infections.
Yeah.
Then, just having, normal encounters could put you at risk. So that's why I tell people to ask their provider, am I eligible for PrEP? A bit more effective than condom use. But the ideal situation, if you're trying to protect yourself out here, is to use a condom for sexually transmitted infections, PrEP for HIV. And there are lots of PrEP resources around the city.
Okay.
Many of them are free.
Right.
So we want people to know about them and be able to ask about them.
Okay, now here we go. So what I know as a therapist and a member of the community is that people aren't wearing condoms. How do we empower women to ask men to wear a condom? That's the best way that I know to ask right now.
It's going to go down for me.
So
I think we have to start a lot. It's going to go down for me.
Right.
So I think we have to start a lot earlier with those conversations.
Yeah. And not depending on them to be prepared as well.
Earlier with those conversations.
Yeah. And not depending on them to be prepared as well. Be prepared yourself. If they don't have what it is that you need to use the condoms or anything of that sort, then have them as well, if that's the type